All right, there we go. Welcome. How's it going? All right, so what I'm doing today is talking about, excuse me, talking about the Filmo Sound 179 amplifier that I like to do. Check. All right, there we go. Great. All right. So, what is it? And what are we doing? Okay. So here it is. I was just then playing my Esquire into the 179. Sorry about the sirens there. And I'm going to be playing it a bit more later on as we talk through some of the features and things. And this camera, overhead camera, may be hard to see, so I'll be swinging this other camera around to try to get at the information. But I figured let's just start off with the schematic, huh? Oh, man. Yeah, there's something going on. All right, so let's start off with the inputs over here. So I adopted the thing that Fender did on a lot of their amps, which is to have two inputs. And the way this works is that each input has a little switch on it. And whenever you plug something in, it detaches from that switch. It's a very standard kind of part, a normal jack or a switched jack. And so the way it works is like this. If you plug into this one, which would correspond with the jack that I was plugged into just then, what happens is you lift this connection to ground, and thus your signal sees the 1 meg grid leak, and then has a 68K grid stopper / mixing resistor. But it also gets paralleled through the switch to the other jack, so that 68K gets paralleled with... How do I get this darn thing to focus? There we go. All right, so we got our two 68Ks, and whenever we open this switch, this signal on the tip gets sent to both input jacks simultaneously. It's paralleling those 68Ks and giving us, 34K. And then this little 47, what's going on with that is that this amp has a pentode with a grid cap on the top of it. And so the signal that comes through these input jacks gets sent up through this shielded wire to this little cap. And the way the cap works is that your signal comes in on one side, and then I put just a 47 ohm resistor to connect to the other side, which gets connected to the actual grid of the tube, grid of the pentode, on the cap like that. In theory, I could have just put a wire right there, but a low ohm value. I figure with the signal traveling through that wire, might be nice to have a little bit of grid stopper in between the junction of the 68Ks and the actual grid. Now let's take a look at it. I'll tip this guy up, and we'll take a look at the inside and see the actual way we've got this configured. So it's a little hard to see, but what have we got here? Right over here, we have our 1 meg, 68K, and another 68K right there. These are hooked up so that when you switch from one to the other, you get that different attenuation. Now, I didn't finish talking about this, so we know what happens if you plug into this input, but if you don't plug into that and you plug into this input, What happens now is your signal disconnects that switch, which was connecting both of those inputs to ground, right? Now your signal's on the tip, and it goes through this 68K right here. And the other side of that 68K that was paralleled before now is attached to ground. So your signal comes in, and instead of seeing 1 meg with a 34K grid stopper, it sees a voltage divider of 68K and 68K with your signal coming right off the middle of it. That's going to attenuate your signal. It's going to drop some of the highs and dull the sound a little bit. But it's also nice to have that attenuated input if you've got a really hot signal, like my pedal steel guitar. Sometimes I'll put into that second input to get the attenuated sound. So now, just for kicks, I'm gonna turn this guy back on. Grab the guitar, and we will plug into the other input. We'll do an A-B. Let you guys hear the difference. So I'm going to turn off the vocal mic for just a second. And what we're going to listen to is this is the attenuated input. Wait, you can't see it, can you? All right, let's fix that. All right, there we go. All right, so here are 2 inputs, right? Just like on the schematic, this one, the lower one, is the hot one, which shows you 1 meg and the parallel 68Ks. And this one is the attenuated one, which shows your signal a voltage divider of 68K resistors, and will be attenuated and mellower. So I'm going to turn off the vocal microphone so that you can hear the guitar mic on its own. And we're going to listen to first the attenuated. I'll just play a riff, something, and then the hot channel. We'll go back and forth. You can hear the difference. All right, so that is the long and the short of the 2 inputs. And originally, when you find these in the wild, they'll have a 1/4-inch jack right there for the microphone, and so it's easy enough just to convert that or put a shorting jack in there. And then run your grid stopper over here on the cap, which is what I've done on some other 179s. But I really like this 2-level input configuration because it is very kind of tweedish, this amp, and that into the hot input with the volume. That's about where I was. You can start to get some crunch out of this amp, some good saturation and overdrive. And so it is nice if you want to keep it clean to have that input option right there. So um, let's move on in the circuit. I'm going to set the guitar down. All right. Ooh. Okay, so moving on. Okay, we got our first tube, right? So we got some pretty standard stuff here. 6J7 is the tube. It is a pentode, a sharp cutoff pentode, if I remember correctly. And we've got a 2700 ohm cathode bias resistor, a 25 bypass capacitor, a plate resistance of 270K, and a see, now there's going to be some discrepancies between what I've written down and what I've got in the amps now, so that'll be fun. So I've got written down here a .005, which was the original coupling cap value. I've since started using a .01, just double the capacitance and pass a few more low frequencies in the amp. But essentially, yeah, that's a good opportunity for me to explain what I do in my conversions, and why there's not just like a 100K, and why I didn't change this out for a triode or some other such thing. And that is that the main thing I'm trying to do here is to take out everything in the Filmo sound that's not an audio amplifier. And that means that a lot of stuff comes out of this tube socket over here, which was a 6V6 used as some kind of oscillator. That comes out. There used to be a big box of capacitors right here, the filter caps, and that comes out, and some individual capacitors go in. And then all of here on this circuit board, there's a lot of, other stuff for, when this thing lived its life as a projector. So anyway, what I do is I try to take all of that out, but I like to leave in the values of resistors and things that will keep the gain staging that this thing had originally. Because that's kind of the fun and the magic of finding one of these things and just plugging your guitar in and saying, oh, that sounds really great, is that it's set up in a way where the gains, the gain of one stage hits the next stage in a nice way, so that you can get some good crunch out of this thing if you want it. But it also will get pretty good and loud for clean stuff. So anyway, looking at this part of the circuit again, so we've got our 270K plate resistor, we've got a 1 meg screen grid resistor, and I've got it written down here a .05. Once again, this .05 and that .005, those were the values originally in this thing. And the first one I did, I remember thinking, it sounds cool, but I want more bass out of it. And I was running it into a 12-inch speaker, and I just didn't have as much bass as I wanted, which I thought, must be something wrong. Sure enough, changing this value, increasing this value, increasing this value, now the amp's got a good amount of bass, and I'm very happy with it. So what values did I change them to? This one, .01, along with this one. And these were always .01s, but I basically .01s for coupling caps throughout. And then this one I up to 1 microfarad. It might be overkill, but sounds pretty good. I like it. So anyway, where is all that stuff? Right here. So we have our 270K plate resistor right here. We have our 1 meg screen grid resistor. And then here we have dropping resistors that are in the power supply, 22K. That's where they are. And so our signal comes through the coupling capacitor right off of that plate resistor to a lug over here that's connected to a wire that runs down to the volume control, which is the next stop on the schematic. So I've simplified the volume and tone control in my Filmo Sounds. Originally, the tone control that they have is some complex system of negative feedback, and I'm sure a lot of more experienced amp people will probably look at that thing and say, "Oh no, it's a simple whatever." It looks pretty crazy to me. And this tone circuit I like a lot. This comes out of the Fender Tweed stuff. So you got a 1 meg audio volume control, and then you've got a tone control which is a linear 1 meg pot, which varies between essentially bringing in a bright cap, which I use a 500 picofarad for that, and then or essentially connecting the plate to a capacitor that'll shunt the high frequencies down to ground, and for that I use a 0.05 microfarad. At most of your volume levels except max, turning it to the bright cap will brighten up your sound, will bring out more, let those highs pass on through. And then you can darken it up. If you have something that's super bright, you can definitely trim those high frequencies down. And once again, I've added some extra grid stopper resistance. I think I've got 47K. Yep, 47K that I take. It connects the wiper of the volume control to the grid of the 6SL7. So let's take a look at that in the layout, and then let's get a quick demo of the volume and tone controls. So our signal comes in off of the coupling capacitor here. This red wire sends the signal to the top of the volume control, and I've got my system here of bright cap and high frequency shunting cap hooked up, the way they need to be. And it's another nice thing I like about this tone control is you can more or less hook all the wires you need up to the volume pot, and it attaches to the volume pot and is incredibly simple but yet really useful. And then I've got my 47K right here going into the grid of the 6SL7, which is another amplification stage, which then dumps into the second half of the 6SL7, which is a what do they call that? Paraphase phase inverter. So we've got 100K up here, we've got 100K down here, we've got our bias resistor and a grid leak resistor, and then our out of phase signals go into some 6v6s. From there, this thing has two secondary outputs on the output transformer, 8 ohm and 16 ohm. The speaker cabinets that come with a lot of these 179s have 16 ohm speakers, so I've just connected that to the output for now, since that's the speaker cab I intend to use with it. I then send a 100K resistor of negative feedback back to this stage in FB right here, and that is the makeup stage after the volume and tone controls. I didn't mean to run through the output section of the amp so quick, but it's pretty straightforward. I didn't mess around with a lot of stuff here. These values stayed the same, except of course for the value of the cathode bias resistor for these 6v6s. They were originally worked up for 110 or 115 volts AC coming out of your wall, and now they've regularly got to deal with 120 or 122, 125. So I like to reevaluate that value, 250, just has them running too hot in pretty much all of the 179s that I've converted. So I just clip in different values of cathode bias resistor until I find a bias that I like. And for this amp, it ended up being 430. Got a nice 10 watt resistor. It's only dissipating like 2 watts in the resistor, but this is, call it overkill, but it's what I had and it works great. So yeah, let's set the camera down, turn this amp back on. I want to demonstrate the volume and tone controls and sort of show you the different volume settings where you start to get a little bit of breakup and how the tone control can interact with that. Once again, I'm going to turn off the vocal mic so that you don't get the guitar amp coming through the vocal mic. You can hear the guitar amp all on its own. And that is just mic'd up. It's the 179 matching cabinet mic'd up with an SM57 going right into my recording interface. And yeah, so there it is. All right. So yeah, I think that's more or less it. That's one quick talk through about the power supply, I suppose, and then I'll wrap it up and sign off. So it's got a 5Y3 rectifier, 16 to 8 4 and 4 is was in the original amp, and I think I'll sometimes bump this up to 20, but often leave it at 16 to 18. Bump that up to 10 maybe. And all these values stay the same. Your heaters, they have a center tap. I've seen amps where this gets connected to the cathode right here to elevate, DC elevate the heaters. I've also seen them where that gets connected right to ground. So, uh, and I've heard both of them be plenty quiet for playing purposes. So yeah, hook it to the cathode, hook it to ground, but reference it to something, right? Okay, and what else? I think that's everything. I like to go with a 1 amp fuse. You can see, I'll turn it back on and we'll see if the camera can reach and you can make it out. Just barely, maybe. But when it starts cooking there, I've got maybe, right, 0.58 amps that's pulling. So 1 amp fuse is plenty. You know, if it starts pulling an amp or more, then something's not right, because we're rocking and rolling into this thing, and it's still, maybe jumps up to 66. I think I maybe saw 69. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, yeah, one other kind of neat thing. I mentioned how this... ooh, let me back this thing up. I mentioned how this amp can feel pretty tweedish, right? That it can get a little bit crunchy and a little hairy. But I've also found there are some other tubes you can pop in where that 6 J7 is. So we've been rocking a 6J7, which is the tube that originally would go in that amplifier. But I happened to pick up on the internet one of these RCA mic preamp modules, and it came with a couple of these 6L7s. I think that they are potentially I'm pretty sure they're remote cutoff pentodes, but the operation points are close enough that you can, and the pinout, and essentially crucially the pinout is the same, so you can just pop this guy in where your 6J7 was. Let's go into the hot input, turn it on, and give you all a taste of what that sounds like. It's not as hot. That's the point, is it's going to stay cleaner. Yeah. So that's the walkthrough of my Filmo Sound 179 conversions. I think that's it, the speaker output, it's got an 8 and a 16. It can be configured for either one, or in some cases, I've put a little switch in there that'll let you flip and select 8 or 16. Um, on some of them, I've replaced both of these old style um, speaker jacks for new modern quarter-inch jacks, but I find that I couldn't remember which one was which, 8 or 16. So, and you know, this doesn't take the labels as good as some other stuff. But anyway, right now, since I've got this thing hooked up to the 179 with a retractable speaker cable, I just leave it on 16. You know, if this is going to get paired with a bunch of random cabinets, I'd probably opt for switching it to the 8, because you're going to run into more 8 ohm or 4 ohm cabinets, and your 8 ohm tap is the better option for those. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks again for watching. My name's Kyle Reed, and I've got I do this every Monday at 4. Just turn the cameras on and talk about stuff that I'm working on in the shop. I do have some amps for sale on my website, kylesradamplification.com and kylereedmusic.com. What else? What else? I think that's everything. So thanks again for checking it out. And if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the comment section, and I'll check back and answer anything that I can. Thanks again, and y'all have a good time. Have a good one.